Welcome everyone. In the last video, we got introduced to the third generation of GSM evolution. In that we saw there are three main components in UMTS. First one was user equipment, second one was UTRA network, and third one core network. So in this video, we are going to see details of UTRA network, that is UTRAN, and details of the core network. Okay, so before going to study the details of UTRA network, first we have to consider the major difference between UMTS and previous versions of GSM is that UMTS uses CDMA technology for multiple access, that is DSSS, direct sequence spread spectrum, whereas previous versions were primarily using TDMA or FDMA. So since the use of CDMA is introduced in UMTS, the entire radio interface is drastically changed, and this is now named as a UU, whereas previously it was named as a UM. So what are the changes in the radio interface? So in UU or UMTS radio interface, direct sequence spread spectrum technology, which we have studied in the first module, is used for performing code division multiple access. Okay, so in that we had seen that a chipping sequence which is used to spread the user signal over a larger bandwidth. So user bandwidth is getting increased, whereas required transmission power gets decreased, and that helps in avoiding frequency selective fading. So since signals in the UMTS are of wideband in nature and are using CDMA technology, UMTS is also known as wideband CDMA. Okay, so UMTS alternate name is wideband CDMA. So as DSSS is used, it needs a chipping sequence. So the chipping rate of this chipping sequence is around 3.84 megachips per second. Okay, so that means within 1 second, 3.84 into 10 raised to 6 pulses are used, which will be XORed with the user data signal. Okay, now another major feature of this chipping sequence is it uses a so-called orthogonal variable spreading factor, that is OVSF codes. Now what is orthogonal code? That means when there are two codes, if they are orthogonal to each other, that means even if they are combined together, their codes will not be mixed with each other. You can refer the orthogonality principle from the digital signal processing as well. Okay, so this is very advantageous in terms of counterfeiting interferences during the air interface. Okay, so if the two codes are orthogonal to each other, they can be multiplexed together without mixing with each other. So UMTS uses such OVSF codes. The uplink and downlink bandwidth for UMTS is around 60 MHz each, whereas in GSM it was around 35 MHz. 25 MHz. Then channel bandwidth, which was in GSM around 200 kHz, now here it is in 5 MHz. So larger bandwidth available. Bandwidth is larger because of use of this DSSS. Okay, previously it was 200 kHz in GSM, now it is up to 5 MHz in the UMTS. So these are the major changes in the radio interface. Details you can refer to the UMTS specification provided by GSM specifications. Let's move on to now the UTRA network and details of it. Okay, on your screen you can see the basic structure of the UTRA network, where there are two RNS are shown. RNS stands for Radio Network Subsystem, Similar to subsystems present in GSM architecture, there will be another subsystem in the UMTS architecture, or specifically UTRA network architecture, that is radio network subsystem. Each radio network subsystem is having at least one radio network controller, as you can see over here, and each radio network controller can support several node Bs. Okay, so all these radio network subsystems are connected together to the core network. Okay, so UTRA network comprises of several radio network subsystems. Within that radio network subsystem, you will have one RNC, radio network controller, and several node Bs. Each node B can support frequency division duplexing or time division duplexing, or it may support both. That means frequency division duplexing means uplink and downlink are separated by frequency. Separate frequency for uplink and separate frequency for downlink. Time division duplexing means uplink and downlink will use same frequency, but channels will be transmitted at different times. Okay, so difference between FDD and TDD is that separate frequency in case of FDD for uplink and downlink, and in case of TDD same frequency but at different time slots for uplink and downlink. Okay, RNC is responsible for handover decisions requiring signaling to user equipment. That means if one user is switching from one node B to another node B, handover will be required, and whether to make that handover or not, that decision is made by RNC, not node B. Okay, cell offers FDD or TDD, that we have already discussed. Node B implements inner loop power control to mitigate near far effect. We will see in detail about this later on. Then UTRA network also measures connection qualities and signal strength. Now another important aspect of UMTS is that since all users are using different codes for transmission, since this is a CDMA multiple access technique, all users will be transmitting at the same frequency and with the same power. So to differentiate between them, there are different codes. Okay, so to maintain the same power level among all the users and maintain the same connection quality, UTRA network is responsible along with its components RNS and RNCs. Okay, so if you observe, the major difference in this architecture compared to GSM is that a node B can cover up to or can cover more than one cell. Here in this diagram you can see first node B is covering 3 cells, whereas second node B is covering 2 cells. Whereas in GSM you can see one BTS forms a single cell. So that is another difference. The interfaces are also modified. They are adapted to the UMTS technology. So different names have been given. So let's see the functions of RNS and RNC and node B in detail. First of all, radio network controller, which is a part of one radio network subsystem. So each RNS must have at least one RNC. There are so many functions of this RNC. It is the most important component in the UTRA network architecture. First task of this radio network controller is that call admission control. Now call admission control means RNC calculates the traffic within each cell. That means how many number of users are simultaneously trying to communicate, and then it decides if additional transmissions are acceptable or not. So for example, if for one cell there are 50 channels and there are 45 users simultaneously trying to communicate, then 45 is less than 50. So additional transmissions or additional users who want to communicate can be allowed. But if there are 50 5 users who are trying to communicate, but channel or cell is supporting only 50 channels, then no more additional transmission can be allowed. So that is called as call admission control. Then next task is congestion control. Now congestion happens when more than one user trying to access the same channel. But in this case of CDMA technology, everyone node B is implementing FDD or TDD. In case of TDD, all users will be allocated a bandwidth in a cyclic fashion or round robin fashion. Let's say there is a channel called as F1. The two users trying to access a same channel. Then they will be allocated this channel one by one. Or if there are 3 users, it will be in a round robin manner. First, second, third, back to the first, and then second, and then third in the cyclic fashion. But while allocating this channel, RNC must consider the QoS requirements of the each individual users. So when 3 users, for this example, when the 3 users trying to access the same channel, how to decide which one is the first user? So depending on this QoS requirement, QoS means quality of service requirement, what type of quality they require, the decision will be made by the RNC. Let's assume first user is trying to send a voice or making a call, whereas second user trying to send a image, whereas third user is trying to send a video. So obviously call will require lesser bandwidth compared to image. Let's assume that on most of the cases that happens, and second user which is trying to send an image will obviously require lesser bandwidth than the third user who is trying to send a video. So depending on the type of data they are trying to communicate, their quality of service requirement will be there, and based on that, availability of the channel and parameters supported by that channel, QoS parameters supported by that channel, RNC will decide who will be given the chance or first chance to access this particular F1, who will be given access second to this particular F1, and who will be given access third for accessing this F1, and that is how QoS will be maintained. Okay, so congestion is avoided by allocating the bandwidth to each station in a round robin manner. Then apart from this, the next task of RNC is doing encryption and decryption. Now all users are using same frequency, transmitting at the same time. So all the data must be encrypted before it is transferred over the wired network. So RNC encrypts all the data arriving from the fixed network before transmission over wireless link. So let's say this is mobile user, here it will be RNC, obviously in between them there will be node B. This is a wireless connection to node B. So whatever data that comes from external network, this one will be encrypted first and then transferred over to the user. In the reverse direction, what happens? Data is encrypted by the user, it is given to RNC via node B, and that data has to be decrypted before it is given to the external network. Okay, so encryption and decryption, both the tasks will be done by RNC. Then the next task is radio resource control. Now in this one, it includes interference and load measurements. Now to allocate different channels to different users, the interference levels and load on that particular channel has to be considered. So that part is done by RNC. So priorities of different connections have to be obeyed, just like we have discussed in the congestion control. A channel which has a more interference level will be allocated at the last, whereas channel which has least interference level may be allocated initially. Okay, so that is radio resource control. Then the next task is radio bearer setup and release. Once call admission has been done, that means a user is allowed to make a call, setting up, maintenance and release of the logical channel to the user is done by RNC again. So RNC is responsible for call admission control, and after admitting a call, setup, maintenance and release of a call is also handled by the radio network controller. Now in this case we are using CDMA technology. So for CDMA, each user will require a separate code. Now we will allocate that code. Now that code is allocated by RNC to each user. Now the next task of RNC is that power control. Now as the users of the UMTS all are transmitting with the same power, the job of RNC is to use minimum power in order to communicate with the external network. But minimum means how much? So to decide that, node B suggests RNC that some minimum power should be maintained in order to maintain the quality of the communication as defined by the QoS. So if it is sending a video, what should be the minimum power with which this video should be sent in order to maintain the quality of the video? That power level is suggested by the node B to RNC. So RNC communicates with the external network with that minimum power. So this is called as outer loop power control. Okay, so RNC only performs outer loop power control, whereas node B will perform inner loop, which we will see later on. This means that RNC influences transmission power based on interference values from other cells or even other RNCs. So in order to maintain a quality, RNC will decide which nodes or which cells or which other RNCs are more interfering, and based on that it will try to adjust the power and support minimum required power in order to communicate with the other cells or other networks. Okay, then the next task is handover control and RNS relocation. It's almost self-explanatory. When user moves from one RNC to another RNC, one RNC to another RNC, or one node B to another node B, then handover is carried out by RNC. And if sometimes user remains within the user changes entire RNS, that is radio network subsystem, then in that case also handover is carried out by the RNC. Okay, so that is RNS relocation. Then the last or one of the last major task of the RNC is that management. So the network operator needs a lot of information in case of UMTS regarding the current traffic, current load or errors encountered within the communication for supporting required quality of service parameters. All this information needs to be maintained to manage the entire network. So this task is also performed by the radio network controller. Okay, so these are some major tasks of RNC which has to be considered. Now the next component is node B. A node B connects one or more antennas creating one or more cells. In GSM we saw a BTS is responsible for creating a single cell. A node B connects one or more antennas for creation of multiple cells, or in case of GSM terminology we can call these as a different sectors if we are using sectorized antenna. The cells can either use FDD or TDD, or it can also use both. Okay, so we have discussed this point previously also, what is FDD, what is TDD. Now node B implements inner loop power control to mitigate near far effect. So let's discuss about this now. First of all, what is near far effect and what is inner loop power control? So let's consider one scenario. There is one node B, okay, and then there are two users which are connected to this node B. Now In UMTS, all users transmit at the same power level. Let's say both are transmitting at 2 dB power levels. dB is a conversion from watt. So both are transmitting at 2 dB. So the signal which is transmitted by this user, let's say user 1 and this is user 2, will reach node B at certain power level, let's say 1 dB. Because as the signal leaves the user, it starts degrading its quality or signal strength as it moves further away from the user. We know that signal strength is inversely proportional to distance between the sender and receiver. So as it moves away from the user, signal quality goes on decreasing. So let's say it reaches at node B at 1 dB level. Now second user is further away from node B, so it also is transmitting at 2 dB power level. So when it reaches the node B, that is signal reaches the node B, it will suffer more degradation compared to the first user. So it reaches, let's say, at 0.7 dB level to the node B. Now as both users are using same frequency channel and are transmitting at same time, but they are separated by different code, now node B has to decide which channel to accept. A channel, let's say at 1 MHz both are transmitting. This is just an example. It is always greater than 1 MHz. It is in 900 MHz or 2 GHz range. So both are having the same frequency. So which channel to accept? So node B decides that this signal which came from user 1 has a better signal strength compared to this one. So it will accept signal from first user because it has a better signal strength. But both users transmitted at same power level and both users are unique in nature. That means they are communicating different data. So since first user is closer to node B, the signal from first user will always be accepted and signal from second user will always be rejected. This is because signal 1 or first user is closer or nearer to the node B and second user is further away or far from the node B. So obviously always second user's signal will always degrade much more compared to first user's signal. So second user will never be able to communicate with the node B. This is called as near far effect. The user which is nearer to node B will always be able to communicate, whereas user which is far from node B will always miss out on the communication. So this is called as near far effect. So to mitigate this effect or to avoid this effect, what does node B does? It uses inner loop power control. So let's assume the same situation. First user is closer, second user is further away. Now both will transmit at the same power level, let's say 2 dB. Now that their signal will arrive at a different signal strength, that is for second is 0.7 dB and first is 1 dB. Now these signal measurements are continuously given by user equipments to the node B. So node B has a database of previous signal strengths of each user. Now based on that information, node B sends a TPC command, transmit power control command. This TPC command is sent by node B to each user, indicating whether they need to transmit at a higher level or higher signal strength, or they should reduce their transmission signal strength. Okay. So this TPC command will indicate each user whether to increase their signal strength or whether to decrease their signal strength. So how does it indicate that? Let's see that. Since second signal is always going to be received at a lower signal strength, node B will indicate the second user to increase its transmission power, and that is indicated by transmitting 1 to the second user, and node 1 should be indicated not to increase its transmission power, so it will be sent a bit 0. So TPC command will transmit either 1 or 0 in order to indicate whether to increase or decrease the signal level, that is transmission signal level, to avoid the near far effect. So if 1 is received by second user, it will understand that there is another user which is nearer to node B, so I should transmit at a higher signal strength. So it will increase its transmission power from, let's say, 2 dB to 3 dB, so that its signal will be having much larger signal strength when it arrives at node B, and near far effect will be avoided. So this process is known as inner loop power control, and that is very helpful in order to decide whether to make a handover or not. Okay, so we have seen what is near far effect and what is inner loop power control. So let's go back to the functions of the node B. So inner loop power control is used for mitigating near far effect by the node B. Node B also measures connection qualities and signal strengths that is required for implementing inner loop power control. Node B also supports special case of handover called as a softer handover. We know what is soft handover. Soft handover means before leaving the previous connection, acquire the new connection. So make before break, which takes place between different users or different antennas of a same node B in case of softer handover. So softer handover is happening between the different antennas of a same node B. Node B can support multiple antennas. So if user is moving from this antenna to this antenna, a soft handover will be implemented. That is, frequency of this antenna will be acquired and then frequency of this antenna will be released. So this is a soft handover. But since it is happening inside a same node B, it will be called as a softer handover. So softer handover takes place between different antennas of the same node. Okay, so now let's move on to these two were the components of Ultra network architecture. Now another component is user equipment, which supports all the components present in the Ultra network. So it has a counterpart for node B, it has a counterpart for RNC, as well as it has a counterpart for core network also. So whatever functions implemented by node B, all will be in association with the user equipment. So user equipment also performs signal quality measurements. It also supports in the inner loop power control. It also supports spreading and modulation and rate matching. All these functions are done by node B, which are mentioned over here. So their implementation is done by the association with the user equipment. So user equipment has a counterpart for node B inside the device. Then it also has a counterpart for RNC also. So whatever functions RNC is doing, they will also require assistance from the user equipment. So user equipment has a counterpart of RNC inside it also. So RNC's functions such as handover, cell selection, encryption, decryption, all will be in assistance with the user equipment. Then core network, whose functions we will see in the later in the video. Its functions will be also with the help of user equipment are implemented, like management functions, bearer negotiation, or requesting certain services from the network. These will be initiated by user and then implemented by the core network. So let's see what are the functions of core network. So this is a core network architecture. Although the diagram looks much more larger, it is very simple to understand if you observe carefully. This is a core network, this is a base station subsystem, and this is a radio network subsystem. So this is base station subsystem, means this is from 2G radio network subsystem means this is from 3G. Okay, so core network supports all the previous versions, that is 2G, 2.5G, 2.75G, and it also supports higher version, that is 3G. This is done in order to avoid completely replacing the entire infrastructure. So let's say we are currently using GPRS network and now new technology has come, that is 3G. So should we replace entire infrastructure of GPRS? No. Just like for GPRS, we added only two components, SGSN and GGSN, to entire GSM network. This is 2G network. We added these two components to support 2.5G. Now to entire 2.5G, we are adding only RNS to make it a 3G network. Okay, so all the previous or backward compatibility is provided by the 3G network. Okay, and that is possible because of this core network. So as you can see, this is 2G, this is 3G. Now inside the core network you will see components which supports 2G and 2.5G, like this one. This is part of 2G and this is part of 2.5G. So we know that in 2G we supported circuit switching. In the 2.5G the packet switching was introduced. So core network is divided into two parts, circuit switching domain and packet switching domain. Now a call made from either 2G or 3G network will be completed with the help of these two domains. If you see, MSC is connected to BSC as well as it is connected to RNC. The interface is different. To connect to BSC, interface is IU. To connect to RNC, interface is IUCS. CS stands for circuit switching. Similarly, SGSN, it also supports BSC and it also supports RNC. Now, to support BSC and RNC, SGSN uses again two different interfaces. To connect to BSC, it uses IU. To connect to RNC, it uses IUPS. PS stands for packet switching. So what are the functions of this? Let's see that. So as I said, core network is divided into two parts, circuit switching domain and packet switching domain. Circuit switch domain comprises the classical circuit switching services including signaling. So resources are reserved at a connection setup. We know that that is a feature of circuit switching, that during the connection setup all the resources will be reserved and then call will be established. So it includes the setup and connection setup and GSM components like MSC, GMSC, VLR. The CSD connects the radio network subsystem, which is a part of 3G, via part of the IU interface called as IUCS, that is IU for circuit switching. The CSD components can still be part of classical GSM network connected to BSS but need additional functionalities, that is new protocols. So what is IUCS? So all the protocols which will use for GSM and GPRS, they will still exist, but to support the 3G it will have additional protocols which will be installed in their architecture. Okay, similarly in the packet switching, it uses GPRS components such as SGSN and GGSN and connects to the RNS via IUPS part of the IU network. Both domains need the databases for equipment identification and location management. Apart from that, no additional protocols will be introduced for supporting third generation communication. Okay, so core network is a backbone of the entire system, mobile communication system, which includes 3G, 2.5G and 2G. Okay, so this is all about UMTS architecture, components, details of these components, in which we saw what is UTRA network, what are the components of it, and how backward compatibility is maintained by the use of core network. That's all for today. Thank you.